that we approve certification of the closed meeting, resolution 21-103. Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Kane. Mr. Conwell. Mr. Brown. Ms. Asher.
Do the pledge of allegiance and pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was great. But we thought what we could before we do the county's business, the jury top, the jury mind, as we go forward, we be reminded of you that we continue to love and care for one another is so important as we go forward this day and time, trying times. We realize what people are like. We are here tonight to do the business of the county of Greensville, and your holy name be praised.
Senators are requesting approval of tonight's agenda with 2 added items in closed session and 2 added items in open. One is resolution 21-106, the disposition of property. I'm sorry, there's just 1 added item in open.
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
It's been moved and second, they will approve the agenda as amended. All in favor with a roll call vote?
Mr. Kane. Mr. Conwell.
Aye.
Mr. Brown. Ms. Asher.
Staff is also requesting approval of the consent agenda. It consists of the minutes of the February 1, 2021 meeting, budgetary matters, warrants, and resolution 21-105, personnel matters resulting from closed session.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
It's been moved and second, they will approve the consent agenda. All in favor with a roll call vote?
Mr. Kane. Mr. Conwell. Mr. Brown. Ms. Asher.
There are no public hearings this evening. We do have a couple of items of appointments. The first is Mr. Matt McLaren with Robinson Farmer Cox Associates. He's here to present the 2020 audit for the county. Hello, Matt. If you'll adjust the microphone, please.
Okay, certainly. Leave that clear. Good evening. My name is Matt McLaren. I'm with Robinson Farmer Cox Associates, and our firm performed the FY 2020 financial statement audit. I'm here to, 1, present the results of that audit, and 2, communicate the required points between an auditor and a governing body. At this time, I would like to review briefly the required communications between an auditor and a governing body. The first of those required communications is responsibilities under the audit. Management or county is responsible for providing records sufficient for audit purposes, for maintaining internal controls, and complying with grant agreements and laws as it relates to financial reporting. The auditor is required to conduct audit tasks sufficient to opine on the financial statements, test those internal controls, and compliance with laws and budgetary requirements. The second item, the required to communicate are accounting estimates. Accounting estimates are a normal part of financial reporting. They are routine with just about any set of financial statements. Common estimates of which are included in this financial report include appreciable lives of capital assets, estimates related to OPEB and pension liabilities, and uncollectible property taxes. The third item required to communicate are difficulties in county performing the audit. An example would be incomplete records or the inability to access records we would need to complete our audit process. Please report there were no such difficulties. The fourth item required to communicate the corrected and uncorrected misstatements. As with most audits, there are proposed audit adjustments. If those proposed audit adjustments are included in the financial report, they're considered corrected misstatements. Adjustments that are not included in the financial statements because management has elected to exclude those considered uncorrected misstatements. And please report there were no uncorrected misstatements for the FY 2020 audit. And lastly, required to disclose any disagreements we had in applying accounting principles. Please report that we had no disagreements in applying accounting principles for the FY 2020 audit. That was briefly the required communication between an auditor and a governing body. At this time, I'd like to review the financial report, since everyone may have a copy with them this evening. I will start on page 1. This is the independent auditor's report. This is the first of 3 reports you'll find in this document that contains the CPA firm's letterhead. This is the overall opinion on the financial statements and the material accuracy of the numbers presented. We've issued an unmodified or clean opinion for the financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2020. Again, that's on pages 1 through 3. To briefly review a few of the key financial figures in this document, I'd like to start on page 14. This is Exhibit 3, the balance sheet. You'll see the financial statement is laid out in a fund financial statement format. The first fund is the general fund, which is the county's main operating fund. And the takeaway from this financial statement, you'll see the total fund balance. It's a number at the bottom there. Total fund balance for the general fund is approximately $16.8 million. The unassigned fund balance, a component of total fund balance, was approximately $16.1 million. You turn the page to page 16. This is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund balance on Exhibit 5. This is very similar to a profit and loss statement or income statement for a for-profit entity. And again, you'll see the same fund layout there in the general fund in the first column. The increase or net change in fund balance is the third number from the bottom. So the increase in fund balance or equity for the year ending June 30, 2020 was approximately $4.25 million. Just like to point out real quickly, if you're kind of scanning across the page, you'll see the capital projects fund had a substantial decrease. It's very common in a capital projects type fund. Funds are issued or accumulated for capital projects or long-term projects that may cross fiscal year. So fund balance will go up and it will naturally come down. And that's what happened this year in June 30, 2020. If there are no questions, I'd like to proceed to the rear of the document. As I mentioned, there are 3 reports. You'll find the audit firm's letterhead. The second and third of those reports are found on pages 115 and 117. On page 115 is the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting. It spans, of course, 1.5 pages. And in this report, we've disclosed no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in financial reporting of the county for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2020. And lastly, the final report that we have issued is found on page 117. This is the report of compliances related to federal programs. Any governmental entity that receives greater than $750,000 in federal funds is required to have what's called a federal compliance audit. We're required to issue a report that's found on page 117, present that report to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse each year. If you were to read the 1.5 pages that this report contains, you'll find that we've issued an unmodified or clean opinion for the federal compliance audit that we conduct. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions the board has at this time.
Does anyone have questions for Mr. Cleveland? If not, thank you for coming down to present.
Thank you. Take this time just to thank management for helping us get through the audit process. It was a unique year, as you may imagine. So I just want to extend our thanks to the county for their assistance.
Second item under appointments this evening is Dr. Alton Hart, District Health Director for Frederick Health Department. Mr. Hart, Dr. Hart was asked to speak to the board tonight regarding COVID-19. course, this is all done with technology, so please be patient.
He's muted.
Please bear with us, folks. Dr. Hart is not here in person, as you can very well tell, but we are trying to bring him up using a program that hopefully will allow him to give a PowerPoint presentation also. So while we wait to see if we can bring Dr. Hart on live and here with us, we can move to the next item on our agenda. We have a Black History Month presentation by Mr. King.
Good evening, everybody. And of course, everybody say Black History Month, I say Black History. Black History is every day, not just one a month. And what I'm going to do tonight is we're going to talk about Greensville. And of course, within Greensville, we have to include Emporia, because it was Greensville, and Emporia was a town up in 1967. Greensville County was a part of Dinwiddie County. In 1789, Greensville County was separated from Dinwiddie County and became Greensville County. If we go back and look back at that period of time, in Greensville County, we had a doctor named Dr. Thomas Stewart. He was a medical doctor, and he was one of the first blacks to live in Greensville County after 1781. He was a free man and a landowner. And Dr. Stewart was able to charge 25 cents. I guess that back in that day was a lot of money to charge 25 cents and waited on somebody. And then when we look at the period right here, Delegate Peter K. Jones. Peter K. Jones bought land in the Hicksford District in 1857, elected to the House of Delegate in 1869 to 1877, represented Greensville County and the surrounding areas. In 1867, he worked very hard to make sure that blacks could vote, and also making sure that blacks get an education. But basically what happened during those times is we had to do most of our education in houses because there was no schools. In 1900, the Greensville County Training School was open for blacks, a 3-1 frame building. It was led by Reverend J.H. Waller, Georgia Kelly, and the principal at that time was E.W.Y. The Belfield School Board gave $1,000. The blacks in the area contributed $500, and the rest of the community bought $1,900. And that's how the training school came about in our training school. In 1929, is when the governing body took over the training school and made it a public school. So during this time, we, as the blacks, was the one that was taking our funds to make sure there was a place for blacks to get an education in. A local farmer named George C. Williams, he purchased a bus to transport county students and teachers to school. And I like to add a note here when I was talking about EWI, and I'm sure some of y'all, I attended EWI as the black high school, and some of y'all might have attended as a junior high or even middle school. And I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Wide's granddaughter, Miss Wide on 10, and we were living in Petersburg, and she actually taught my daughter history during that time, back in the 90s. In 1954, EWI High School opened, and the training school became an elementary school. Mr. Wide became the first principal, and the school was named after him, EWI High School. Samuel Wilbert Tucker, a black lawyer with an office in Napoleon, was one of the main lawyers in the 1954 case, Brown versus the Board of Education. He also worked on the Prince Edward case when the school was shut down for about 5 years because they didn't want blacks to attend the same school as the whites. I had the pleasure as a youngster growing up on Atlanta Street. Samuel Wilbert Tucker office was to go up to meet him and also to talk to him when he was in Greensville County. Garland T. Faison became the first black justice of peace who could marry couples, handle small claim court cases that was less than $10,000. He was also the first black elected to the Board of Supervisors. Joseph Bowen, a local funeral home owner of Barnes Funeral Home, was the first black elected to the city council. Wyatt Lee was the first black elected to sheriff. Linda Richards was the first black elected to the county treasurer. Linda Ellis was the first black elected to clerk of the court. Vera Person was the first black elected to the mayor of Emporia. I'm gonna say this before I get myself in trouble. I'm speaking of elected officials. So somebody gonna tell me about first. I'm talking about elected officials. And if I leave anybody's name out, charge it to my heart and not to my head, okay? Bessie Moore and Ronald Jones Geller was the first black to be elected to the school board. Belinda Acewell was the first black chairperson of the Board of Supervisors. Delegate Rosalind Tyler, I remind people of this because Mr. Peter Jones was the first black elected to the 75th District. Delegate Tyler was the first black female elected to the 75th District. Also, we had Lydia Ramsey. She was elected to the first Commonwealth attorney, and she also served as a judge. And I'm going to close my statement with this, using some words from the great Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, I prefer love because hate is too much to bear. He said, one day, this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creeds, that all men are created equal. And we will speak up that day. We all can join hands and sing in our own Negro scripture. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty for free at last.
Thank you very much.
So do we have Dr. Hart yet? All right, we'll move on. We have the added item that was mentioned at the first of the meeting. It's Resolution 21-106. It's approval of bids for the disposition of the land, whichever land.
Good evening. January 24th and 27th, staff advertised for bids for the sale of surplus property at the landfill. On February 10th, we received bids on all of the surplus equipment. Rite Aid Equipment Company submitted a bid in the amount of $5,005 for the purchase of the Caterpillar dozer. Excuse me. Rite Aid Equipment also submitted a bid in the amount of $2,505 for the purchase of the surplus Caterpillar compactor. And Rite Aid Equipment submitted a bid to trade us a 670B motor grader that he owns for the surplus 963 front end loader that we have in the landfill. After reviewing and evaluating the bids, staff has determined that these bids to sale and or trade should be awarded to Ride Equipment Company. Staff is asking your approval of the attached resolution, which authorizes the county administrator to execute sale agreements after it is approved by the county attorney. Have any questions? Thank you.
I move to approve resolution 21-106 as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Roll call.
Mr. Kane. Mr. Caldwell.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Bishop.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is citizens' comments. Anyone wishing to speak to the Board of Supervisors, please come forward, state your name and address at this time.
My name is Ed Love. I live at 300 Cyphers Lane. I've been a resident of Greensville County for almost 70 years. I'd like to address some things I was hoping Dr. Hart would be on before I spoke. I'm just wondering, is he going to answer questions or he's just going to give us what's he going to do?
He was here at the request of the board just to give a presentation, and they may have questions for him, but
We're not, anybody here like.
no, so we are not intended to open the floor.
Okay. I gotta say, when the pandemic first started, and they started talking about testing, we heard testing. That's the key. Nancy Pelosi stood up, testing. That's the key. And we were eating supper, my wife and I. We always watch the news while we eat supper. I don't know why, because it makes me mad every night. I don't know why I do that, but we do. And I looked at my wife and I said, they talk about this massive testing. I said, that's not going to happen in Greenville County. Now, I know we've had some testing. But to be honest with you, I never heard from any county officials, my supervisor, or anybody, exactly how I could get a test if I wanted to have one. I'm a little disappointed in the communication from the board of supervisors. This pandemic is the most catastrophic thing that's ever happened in my lifetime. I was not alive during World War II. I'll be 70 years old next week. So this is the worst thing in my life that's ever happened to our country. So moving on, about the middle of this past summer, I can't keep my mask up. When it was announced that we probably have a vaccine by the end of the year. Of course, me and my wife were sitting there at the supper table, and I don't know why I do this, because it makes me mad when I watch the news while I'm eating, but I did. And I looked at my wife and I said, that's great news. I said, in Greensville County and Portland, it'll be 2.5 years at least before we ever get vaccines. Now, I wasn't exactly right, but I was close, because we're getting just enough vaccine so the Crater Health District can say they're giving us vaccine. We're getting scrapped. I did not hear anything from any of my supervisors about what I would do to register or make an appointment to get in line to maybe get a call from somebody or an email, I guess it's the Department of Health, to possibly get a date that I could set up an appointment to get a vaccine. And it may be days to weeks to months. We did go online and register. And that's the reply we got. Now, I know you out there don't really have anything to do with that. But I am disappointed in the lack of communication that the citizens of Greensville County have from our board of supervisors. especially in the last year. Putting the website up on the county website that comes from the Crater Health District and make it run a little blurb on page 3 of the newspaper, to me, that's not sufficient. Everybody in this county doesn't get the newspaper, and everybody can't work the internet. Everybody's got a mailbox though. Most every house I ride by got a mailbox out front. Now, I don't have any faith at all in this Crater Health District. I'm really interested to see what this Dr. Hart had to say. But I pretty much know what he's going to say. He's going to say there's a shortage of vaccines. It is in Greensville County. He's going to say the money, they don't have the staff. He's going to come up with all sorts of reasons. I was interested in hearing what he was going to do tonight. You know, we're going to set up a bank of phones now. We're going to have a bank of phones here, a bank of phones over there, and everywhere. We're going to have a bank of phones here if we don't watch out. We just had a new website go online today, from what I understand. The governor was on the television. And he was just as pleased with himself as he could be. Well, I've got to ask the question. Is there 35 health districts in the state? Like 35, and this was going to tie them all together. Why wasn't this done in October and November? That's the question you need to ask Dr. Hart. Why weren't these phone banks set up in October and November? Why are we doing it in February? Did they just all of a sudden realize they got 2 million doses of vaccines? Now we got to give these things out some sort of way. We got to get people registered. Somebody dropped the ball. That's why I was interested in hearing. I wish I could have asked him the question, because I realize y'all don't have nothing to do with that either. But I'm going to tell you, if you don't watch those people, whatever they say, they have cut benefits. I don't know whether they cut benefits from Greenville County. It's hard to get information, but I know there was a program on Channel 8 TV in Sussex County, our neighbors to the north. You know, the Crater Health District shut down their health department back in March and left a note on the door telling them they could go to Hopewell for service. Now, this is per, I don't know if any of you know this gentleman. His name is Eric Fly. Anybody know? Y'all know him? He's a supervisor in Sussex County. And this is on Channel 8 now. I'm just reading basically the transcripts of it. I think that's disgusting. And they claim they took those personnel and moved them somewhere else to better handle the COVID pandemic. You know, Sussex is very much like us. A lot of elderly people can't do internet, can't do online teleappointments with a doctor. They don't have. I don't think they even have a doctor's office in Sussex County. Maybe they do, I don't know about it. If you don't watch these people, that's what they're going to do to us. They're going to talk a good game. But I don't have any faith in all of them. I don't know about you on the board, but I don't have any faith in them. You know, you can go to North Carolina and Royal Brothers and get a shot from the board of Virginia, a vaccine. Y'all know that? My next door neighbors living down the street. We run up there and got vaccinated for the virus. I shouldn't have to go to North Carolina. That's ridiculous. I know some people have been to Colonial Heights and got shots. Yeah, I know one lady that's gone to Dinwiddie. I don't know how she did that. Got a shot in Dinwiddie. We can't get them here in Portland. We get out, 80 shots a week? I don't understand it. That's what y'all need to be asking this guy. And he's going to tell you, we're short of staff. That's what he said in that Channel 8 news article. Well, you know, the United States Congress just passed a bill back in spring of last year. It was almost $3 trillion. Billions of dollars in that bill for COVID. They passed another one in December. That was almost, I think it was $900 billion. Millions of dollars for COVID. The governor of Virginia, on the front page of today's Richmond Times-Dispatch, I guess it's a miracle. He found $73 million to add to the state budget. And I'm going to quote him. He said, Virginia's economy continues to thrive in spite of the pandemic. That's his words, not mine. Maybe he needs to bring some of that $73 million down here to the Credit Health District in Greensville County and Florida, Sussex County, and Surrey. Surrey's in the same road Sussex is. Their health department is open 1 day a week. They got the same kind of community that Sussex has and we have. There's older, elderly people, not a lot going on in Sussex County, and not a lot going on in Surrey. But he's going to tell you, and what he said, the response from the Credit Health District, from this spokesman, some lady named Banks, I think, was that they had a shortage of staff. You know, Sussex County threatened to cut the funds off to the Credit Health District. Y'all know that? Maybe we ought to do it. In fact, what it says in the article is Mr. Flyer says they're looking at taking legal action. I don't know what that would be. But since they don't even have a health department, I mean, it's just crazy the way we've been treated. It's just like the road, the highway repair money that we get. You know, sometimes we don't get enough money to fix a pothole. Would y'all agree with that? If you don't watch them, that's what we're going to have. They're going to do just enough to say they did something. And that's about it. If you don't watch them, somebody here has got to take the leadership. They haven't said to me yet they could organize anything. If they wait till months into giving out vaccines to decide to come up with some sort of registration website, that's way too late. That's a good tale about how they're going to happen. Now, I know the country's not swimming in vaccines, but I've not read or heard that the state of Virginia actually ran out of the vaccine. Anyway, it's going to Northern Virginia. It's going to the Richmond, Petersburg, that area, Chesterfield, Guzman, Henrico. It's going down to what I call Tidewood, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake. I guess it's just coincidence that those three localities are the localities and areas that decide every state election when election time comes around. I guess that's just a coincidence. But I tell you, I'm not satisfied with a lot. I know you can't work a miracle. And if you got 330-some million people to give a shot in the arm twice, I know that's a tough job. But I just feel like we are getting the scraps like we do in most everything else. Anybody have any questions of me? I think before you time, I hope you take what I say in the spirit in which it was given. And I think Mr. Hart needs to answer some hard questions, especially concerning our area of the world. There's not a soul in this room, I would bet you money, that hasn't lost somebody to the virus. I had it 6 weeks ago, I had it. And I can tell you, I don't want it again. I didn't have to go to the hospital, but I can tell you, it put me right on my butt. I can tell you, you don't want it. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So, is Dr. Hart ready at this time?
We're able to share the screen.
So we have no audio. All right, Ms. Owens, can you go ahead and give us our COVID-19? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I wanted to be sure no one else wanted to speak. I'm sorry, I didn't make a last call. If there is anyone else, Ms. Owens, could you give your COVID-19 update?
Ms. Carson, I think you got someone else who wants to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see you, sir. Come forward.
Good evening. How are you doing? My name is Bruce Avery. I live on White Mill Road. I'd like to address the trash issue that's coming from the Boys Head plant. We just got it unreal. We really need to do something about it. You know, a lot of it's coming from when they leave for lunch. They eat lunch, drink a beer, throw it up before they get to the plant. I can't believe Boys Head management sees this every day and don't do anything about it. I'm just asking if we can get some help. Talk to somebody to do something, but it's getting bad, real bad. Looks like a landfill in our area. So, like I said, if you could do something to help, we appreciate it.
So, can you give me the road name?
Say again?
What's the road name?
Wyatt's Mill Road and Allen Road?
Say, boy.
Yes.
Can I address this? I mean, this is my district, and I've talked to Ms. Sacred about it, and I've actually had conversations with VDOT, and we've had regional jail pick up trash. We actually met with, management from Boys Head to address it, but we're not getting anywhere. I've actually asked Carson to look at, see if we could hire independent contractors to pick up trash, because it is getting out of hand. It's not just food wrappers, bottles, it's bags.
Is now joining.
And actually, it's a problem that we have throughout the whole county right now, because I've talked several times myself about areas that are in my district, it's ridiculous, and I agree with you.
It's embarrassing.
So that's something that we have to look
We're
at.
working on it, we need to do something.
Yeah, with the visitors, you know, people visiting the county, and, you know, it's embarrassing. You know, it's not us, but anyway, it's bad, really bad. And then we got another store that's gonna open up on the other end of Purdy. So what we're stopping, trash is stopping like maybe 2/10 of a mile from the house, now we're gonna be getting it from both ends. So, anyway, if you could do something to help, I'd really appreciate it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Update on Dr. Howard.
Can you hear me?
Is that you, Dr. Howard?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, seems like I can barely hear you. Can you hear me clearly?
Can everyone hear Dr. Howard?
I can hear you clearly.
Yes, sir.
Proceed, you can proceed.
Dr. Hart, we can hear you, you can go on and start.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. I wasn't certain. Okay. Good evening, everyone, members of the Board of Supervisors, County Administrator, Ms. Brenda Parson. Thank you for the opportunity to share updates regarding our district COVID-19 vaccine rollout. Before I share the latest updates, I'd like to start with some background information that I hope will be helpful. The Prairie Health District began its vaccine rollout the week of January 4th. Specifically, we started our phase 1A vaccine rollout, which we called our pilot week. We wanted to and needed to test the systems. Unfortunately, we were unable to test the systems over the Christmas holidays because our equipment was late arriving and we had to train our staff. So during our pilot week, we conducted 5 COVID-19 vaccine points of dispensing, also known as pods. We conducted pods in Greensville, Emporia, Dinwiddie, Prince George, and Petersburg. following week, the week of January 11th, we began our regular schedule of 4 pods per week, Greensville and Emporia, Tuesdays 5 to 8, Dinwiddie, Thursdays 5 to 8, and Petersburg and Prince George, Saturdays 9 to 4 p.m. These geographical regions were selected by the district's COVID-19 vaccine planning committee, which included several of our local emergency managers. The locations were strategically selected with the intent of efficiently accommodating individuals in phase 1A, healthcare personnel, and first responders. It was never our intent to have individuals 65 and others with high-risk medical conditions to travel to Greensville County outside of their localities to receive COVID-19 vaccines. And so these initial 4 geographical locations were selected because the planning committee actually felt that healthcare workers and first responders would be able to travel outside of their locality. On January 13th, the state received an open letter from the director of the Centers for Disease Control, basically admonishing the state to move on from phase 1A to phase 1B. Up to this point, health directors were given a clear mandate to not move on to 1B until phase 1A vaccinations were complete. And this point was communicated several times during our meetings with senior leadership in our agency. However, after the state received the open letter, our Commonwealth began moving in that direction because of increasing demand. And so during that same week, the state defined who would be included in phase 1A and phase 1C. Phase 1B was eventually redefined to include individuals 65 and older, individuals 16 to 64 with high-risk medical conditions or disabilities that would place them at greater risk for poor outcomes due to COVID-19, along with frontline essential workers. Originally, phase 1B included those 75 and older, along with frontline essential workers. So once the state announced that the Commonwealth would be moving to phase 1B, the vaccine rollout became extremely challenging. Only 11 health districts out of 34, 35 were prepared to move to phase 1B at that time. And that's because many of them have very large health systems that were assisting with vaccination efforts in their health districts. And most districts, like Korea, were caught off guard with the sudden expansion to phase 1B. So we were just not prepared to move our 8 localities to phase 1B. However, we had to move to phase 1B. So I know there may have been some misinformation or confusion with regards to communication because we initially communicated that we would move to phase 1B on February 1. And I felt that this will give us a little bit more time to shift our plans and to adjust. However, residents heard that the Commonwealth and other districts had actually moved to phase 1B, and as a result, our call center was flooded. And one district, the whole system actually crashed. So this sudden expansion to phase 1B did not allow us ample time, unfortunately, to update our website to provide clear guidance as well as address other technical challenges such as those related to registration. For example, I know there have been numerous concerns and complaints regarding VAMS, which is the Vaccine Administration Management System, which is a CDC system. And VAMS has a number of issues. VAMS is primarily an employer-based system that allows points of contact to actually put their employees in the system to get them vaccinated. So this sudden move to phase 1B did not give our district ample time to make the adjustments to accommodate individuals 65 and older as well as individuals without computers or access to the internet. And this was common for many of the health districts across the Commonwealth. Also, the sudden move to 1B did not allow us time to actually expand our postal dispensing or our clinics to accommodate all of our localities equitably. And as I stated, it was never our intention to have local residents or underserved communities actually travel to Greensville County outside of their localities to be vaccinated. In addition, I know some have asked the question as to why other districts are vaccinating more people than Prater.
Well, one reason is because Freddie Health District does not have, unfortunately, large health systems like Ballard or systems like ECU assisting with the vaccine rollout. The bulk of the vaccines that arrived in the state actually went to healthcare systems and not the health departments. And so health systems like ECU have administered thousands and thousands of vaccines, and we have not been so fortunate. Also, the availability of vaccine is another issue. The state is receiving a limited number of vaccines, and Virginia has been receiving only about 105,000 doses of vaccine per week. So each health district is receiving a certain allocation of vaccine based on a formula. And the amount of vaccine a district receives is based on the population of the entire district. So the population of the Great Health District is about 155,000 people. And so this 155 is about 2% of the total population of the Commonwealth. And so you'll see on this slide here, the breakdown of the populations for the Great Health District. And so those percentages are used to determine the allocation of vaccines across the district. Now, the current plan is for us to use, so we're getting both now the Moderna and the Pfizer. So the plan for us is to use the Moderna vaccines to continue vaccinating individuals in phase 1A, like group homes, along with those individuals 65 plus in phase 1B. And as I shared recently, we have been receiving the Pfizer vaccine and have been using these vaccines primarily to vaccinate teachers and staff of the 7 school divisions in the Great Health District. We were not able to get the Pfizer vaccine early on because of the ultra-cold freezing that it requires. And so we were just able to get a freezer maybe about a week or so ago. Most districts have had those freezers on back order. We ordered our Pfizer freezer last year, and so they've been on back order. Fortunately, there was a health district that received or had an extra ultra-cold freezer, and we were able to acquire it. So last year, we've been using the Pfizer vaccine to vaccinate teachers and staff in our 7 school districts, school divisions, and we actually started vaccinating our Greensville County teachers and staff on February 6th. So we were scheduled to continue our vaccinations with teachers and staff this past weekend. However, all of our vaccination clinics were postponed due to the weather and have been rescheduled for this upcoming weekend. So to help address the call center challenges I mentioned earlier, the state is launching a statewide pre-registration system. The Virginia statewide pre-registration system is now live, and anyone who lives and works in Virginia can go there to get information about COVID-19 vaccines and to pre-register for a vaccine. So if a person is already pre-registered at the local health department, they do not need to do anything. They are already on the list, and that's a great thing. If a person wants to confirm that they are pre-registered, they can do so at vaccinatingvirginia.com. I'm sorry, vaccinatingvirginia.gov. Here are some resources, additional information. So I shared prior to the state rolling out its pre-registration system, call system, we reached out to all of our local government partners to try to expand our call center because we recognized that this was a huge issue. We were getting, as I said, hundreds and hundreds of calls, thousands of calls, and so it just really overwhelmed our system. And this year, we were not prepared at the time that the transition was made to 1B. And so now with our local government partners, as you can see on this screen here, there are calls to the local call centers to help with the volume of calls that have been coming into the district. And so I think this will be helpful going forward, along with having the state call system. And I believe the governor is planning to do a press conference tomorrow to talk about this pre-registration system even more, and then to provide additional information with regards to the number to call. So I'm sure that you have a lot on your board agenda for tonight. So I will stop here. I know you have a lot of questions, so I will do my best to answer the questions.
Dr. Hart, it's been brought to our attention, as well. I know a lot of residents don't have computer access, availability to see websites. We advertise in local papers, but they don't receive that. Is it any type of mailing that could be sent to all residents?
So I think I heard what you said in terms of residents not having access to computers. So one of the, is that correct? The sound is a little bit muffled.
That's correct.
So I think that's what I heard. Okay, so the good thing about the call center, the state call center, and having the local call center, given the fact that in a lot of our communities, particularly our rural communities, people just don't have access to computers or the internet. So over the phone, once you get a call to a person on the phone, they will be able to go into the system and put that person's information into the pre-registration system and actually get them onto a wait list. So that has been a huge issue, and we've heard that complaint a lot, and I recognize it, I get it, I know that there are definitely issues with access to computers and the internet in our district, and particularly in our more rural areas, and it's just not our district, it's across the Commonwealth. So I think that issue obviously kept coming up quite a bit over and over and over again. And so to help all of the districts, this is the effort that has been put forward by the state. Not only just to answer the call, but to also try to accommodate those individuals who do not have access to the internet, to get them in the pre-registration system so that they can get on the wait list, so that they can then move forward to getting an appointment to get their COVID-19 vaccine.
But even with the call center, how do we get that information out to the general public? Is there, that's what I say, is there any type of mailing or anything that we can send to the general public? Put in every mailbox?
So, yeah. So one of the things that we've done, in addition to at the local district level, creating our call center with our local government partners, we've also created a CRADER JIC, a Joint Information Center. And so that Joint Information Center is involving all of our local government partners, so that all of our local government partners can get information out in a timely manner. And so that JIC, that Joint Information Center, well, each locality will work together and determine the best strategy to get the information out to the community, because we recognize that one size does not fit all. And so we want to make sure that we're getting the information out that's tailored best for that community. So I recognize that there are nuances. And so this Joint Information Center will work with all of our local government partners to get that information out to individuals. So for some, it could be putting a mailer in the utility bill. So that might be the best strategy for certain communities. For others, it may be putting it in the newspaper or our newsletter. So our Joint Information Center will work with each locality and determine the strategy that's best suited for those localities. So we're definitely working on a plan to make sure that everybody gets the information. So I appreciate that question.
Okay, I have a question. I've been getting people, they'll call in and I need to know what are the information that they need to get registered, because some people are saying all they're asking for is just a name and a phone number. And I've seen the register where they ask for more than that. What does it take to make that register completed? And they'll be sure to get a call back.
So it's collecting more than just name and address, I think if I heard you correctly. So it's also collecting date of birth, because we want to make sure that we're able to get to our citizens who are 65 and older. It's also asking questions about chronic medical conditions, because as you know, those individuals with underlying chronic medical conditions are at greater risk for outcomes due to COVID-19. So it's collecting more than just name and address. Absolutely.
Well, I done had someone call and that's all the rest of the person have asked for. Will they still be, contacted with just that information?
I'm going to say that one more time.
With the information, well, it may be done differently now, I don't know, but I've had people to say to me all day, been asked what's their name and just call on them. I understand it's supposed to be their birthday address, email address if they have it. So will it be, in other words, if the form is not complete, they will not get a call back.
So you're asking if the form is not complete? I think that's what I heard you say.
Correct. It is not.
So all of that information has been merged together from my understanding, and they're still working out the issues with it. It just went live today, and so they are still working on that as of today, and hopefully we'll get all these issues will be resolved very quickly. If there are issues with contact and things of that nature. But my understanding is that people have been on the list, they will be on the new list as well. Even if it's not all of the information, I think I'm hearing you say that was not initially collected. So all of that, I believe, will be sorted out.
I would just like to ask a question, with more vaccines becoming available, will there be any plans for mass vaccination sites in our area?
I think I heard a question about mass vaccination. So yes, so that is our plan. Once vaccines become more available, we do want to have large vaccination efforts. I don't know if you caught in the media that Delegate Air was able to work with at the state level, and there will be a mass vaccination clinic this coming Friday in Petersburg, just for full transparency. And so we have asked for additional vaccines because I want to make sure that we are able to have mass vaccination clinics, not just in one locality or for 2 or 3 localities. I want to make sure that we are having mass vaccination clinics in all of our localities, including Greensville and Emporia. I've already reached out to Delegate Tyler, and I've had a conversation with her with regards to our plans in terms of having a large event. And I'm preparing and I have a meeting scheduled with Delegate Brewer as well. So I want to make sure that I know I showed you the slide that provides the breakdown by population, and that's unfortunately the way we are directed to allocate the vaccine. However, I want everybody in the room to know that I am advocating for more vaccines for this district and trying to make sure that everybody can participate in a mass vaccination effort. So I appreciate that question, and so that definitely is something that we are wanting to do.
And I think I just have one more follow-up question. There have been a lot of people saying that people from North Carolina have come over here to get shots, as well as people from here have gone to North Carolina to get shots. How are we going to streamline it where the people that actually live here are the ones that are getting the vaccines? I don't think we should be going across state lines for vaccines.
Yeah, great question. And Charles, we've had a lot of conversation about that, and that's been a challenge for us here in the Craig Health District in terms of people coming from other districts and taking up spots in our clinic. And because of the way the system has been set up for them, we did not know that it was very difficult to stop that from happening. But once we were able to go back and look at the data, we realized that people were coming from out of our district and taking up our slot. So we're hoping that, and I'm sorry, I didn't share this in my presentation. So we're in the process of moving away from BAM and moving to a new system called PrepMod. They're still working out the kinks in this system because part of the challenge with BAM, and it seems to be the same issue with PrepMod, people can take the link, and that's what was happening with BAM. People can take the link and they can send it to anyone outside of the district and they can get an appointment. Well, we also discovered that the link that's provided with this new system allows for the same thing. So a person outside of Greensville or outside of the Cricket House district can get the link and register for an appointment. I know that there were people coming down from Richmond to get vaccines, and our neighboring districts coming over to Crater and getting vaccines. And so once they correct this issue with PrepMod now, I believe that issue will go away. But they're working on it. And so what we've been doing a lot of lately has been, and it's required a lot of work, we've been doing a lot of our registration processes by paper and not sending out those links. Now, because we had so many school divisions when we started our vaccination efforts with the teachers and staff on the state, we did send out links to the school divisions. However, we were very fortunate to be able to have the superintendent to vet those lists to make sure that the individuals on those lists were actually their teachers and staff. Outside of that, it's been very difficult, but my understanding is that they're working out that situation with the new registration system. The PrepMod system is more geared towards getting the community vaccinated. Again, it's still an electronic system, and that's why it's going to be really helpful for our citizens to call in, and the official call-in number will be released tomorrow during the governor's press conference. That's my understanding. So the number that people will be able to call to do the pre-registration process will be announced during the governor's press conference tomorrow afternoon. That's my understanding. So hopefully that'll get us through some of these challenges that you are raising. And trust me, we've had a lot of conversations about that issue.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Hart? If not, we thank you, Dr. Hart, for your presentation and for responding to the questions asked by the board members.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Allison Hart
is now exiting.
We'll move on then to the COVID update for Vista Owens.
Good evening. And COVID briefing for today is centered around the same theme that I have every week. And this morning, Crater had provided updated information. And I usually like to use Crater district information, but I included one that was put out on the 8th of February, which was the afternoon of our last meeting. But I looked on USA Facts instead today to get my update. And according to Facts, Greensville County had a total of 1,419 positive cases reported since we began coverage last year on positive cases. All right. They also had 18 deaths reported, which was up one from our previous report. The city of Emporia had 609 COVID positive cases reported. reported, and he had 35 deaths reported. They were COVID related. So our community has over 2,028 cases reported, and a total of 53 deaths due to COVID-19. These numbers represent one of the largest per capita both positive and deaths that there is here in the state of Virginia, right? Now, as we speak, we have some light on the subject. We're having this briefing now, currently we're running a vaccination clinic right next door, right? And we got people that are receiving first doses, and we got people that are also receiving second doses where we're vaccinated several weeks ago. And these people are in group 1A and 1B, like Dr. Hart just referred to, right? And staff has numerous calls on how to register for the vaccine. And this information has changed several times since we started the vaccination clinic. It's kind of a fluid process. As of today, I got information about the call center that was put out, that Dr. Hart talked about. It's now the state call center, so people can call the number and get referred to our call center in Dinwiddie County and talk to a person over there, or they can call another number and they can talk to the state operator and put their number on the list there. And what staff does is we post that on the county webpage. We post it on Facebook and both at the sheriff's office Facebook and Independent Messenger License, put it on their Facebook. And we also put it on the Chamber of Commerce. Recently, we sent out code red messages providing call center information. And I would encourage citizens, if you haven't signed up for code red, you're missing out on a great opportunity. You can receive phone calls, you can receive text, and there's also a mobile app that you can put and track your phone. So if you take time to look at the county webpage, all right, and just research on and look at all of the options the code red has, that's a service that the county provides, that y'all fund. It's a way that we can get word out to the most people the fastest. All right. I think there was some conversations about the best way to get the information out, and I'm open to suggestions. I know the mailers, we've tried mailers before. Everybody doesn't get a water bill or anything, so it's probably a combination of all the media outlets. All right. And hopefully word of mouth, passing word at your churches, that you attend and things like that. All of those are great ways of communicating this information that's out there for people, right? And on the registration, and I think Dr. Hart touched on that. Once you put your name on the list and you go on the list, putting your name on the list 3 or 4 times doesn't increase your odds of winning a ticket to get a vaccination. They're going to screen it by age and by medical condition, and they have their criteria set up in the selection system. And Craig Health District is the one that runs that program. It's not CAMS, it's not emergency services, it's not the board of supervisors. Right? And staff did support Craig Health District on Saturday, February 6th. And we vaccinated everyone that signed up in Greensville County school system at that time for COVID vaccine right here in this room. That was our first test of having a vaccination clinic set up in this big room. It worked great. We put about 200 people through here in a little over 2 hours. And again, we weren't using computers, we were doing the paper part. And I think that process helped it move along good. That was our pilot and test. So that when the vaccine do become available, our plan is to have the golden lead times. It'll walk in if the weather keeps us from being outside. We can set it up in here and we can push 3, 4 500 people through here in the course of a day-long vaccination, when the vaccines become available, right? But that clinic run just as smooth as anyone I've seen done that day. My hat's off to all the school employees that volunteered, the people in the community that came in and volunteered, the nurses and the people with registration, post-registration. And the good thing was, when those people left here that day, they already had their appointments, like our clinics going on there. They had that second appointment confirmed when they left the building. And that's a big improvement over when we first started. And Dr. Hart mentioned the BAMS or the DAM system, and that was a little bit too complicated for a lot of people to navigate. So hopefully Prep is going to be easier for people to get in and take advantage of it, right? And staff is still working with Crater Health District to streamline the vaccination process, right? We're able to vaccinate more people in the same amount of time there. So as the staff becomes available to volunteer, they're used to how the flow works. It seems to be flowing a whole lot better, right? So staff also continue to remind the Department of Health, right, that we are one of the unhealthiest communities that live in the state of Virginia, and hopefully, the state will allocate more vaccines to the Crater Health District, earmarked for Greensville and Emporia in the future. Are there any questions?
I'd just like to make a comment. I would like to see some type of postcard mailer sent out to current resident mailboxes with the code red numbers, the call center numbers, and the websites to make sure that we're reaching everybody. As Mr. Lowe addressed us earlier in citizen comment, I think we got a lot of people out there we're not reaching, we're not communicating with. We need to make that effort to do that.
And what I'll do is I'll reach out to the city of Emporia, and the reason it kind of needs to be a combined effort is if you deal with the mail system, you know, a lot of people live in Greensville County have an Emporia zip code. A lot of people that live up towards the Purdy area, they may have a Jarrett zip code. We also have people from Suffolk County with a Jarrett zip code. Skipper goes actually into the edge of North Carolina. And then, so what we can do is we work with the Crater public information people as far as letting them draft up the language on the flyer concerning the vaccination process, you know, who you call, how do you register, and that type of thing. And we can, when I say we, both the city and I can work code red, and we can make sure we have that link and things on there so that people can actually go in and register for code red. And like I say, if you don't have that mobile app on there, you're an iPhone type person or whatever, that mobile app follows you anywhere you go. It gives you the current location, updates, plus back where that phone's logged into. All right. Well, we can work on that. Anything else? Thank you for your time. I'm going to get back to the vaccination clinic.
Staff recommends you adjourn.
So moved.
Been moved in second, and we adjourn, all in favor with a roll call vote?
Mr. Kane? Mr. Conwell?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Asher?
We'd like to have a motion to go to regular session for 1
So moved.
Second.
roll call.
Mr. Kane? Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Conwell?
Aye.
Ms. Asher?
I'd like to have a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Kane? Mr. Conwell?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Asher?
I'd like to have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda.
Move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Roll call.
Mr. Kane? Mr. Conwell?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Asher?
There's no public hearings. Item of appointment, we have Mr. Larry Moody, president of the press and exemption from the rules and regulations GC 38.
Good evening. I just wanted to give you some information regarding Mr. Moody's request. Mr. Moody previously had an appointment before the Water and Sewer Authority on November 2nd, 2020. Mr. Moody requested an exemption to the Water and Sewer Authority's rules and regulations. He requested your approval to convert his account from an unmetered sewer user to a sewer non-user. The authority requested at that meeting that Mr. Moody have his septic tank inspected to verify that it was functioning properly, and then return to the authority for a decision regarding his request. The Virginia Department of Health inspected his septic system and found no deficiencies. A copy of that septic inspection report is attached. The authority also directed the staff to verify that Mr. Moody was not connected to the system. The result of our inspection determined that Mr. Moody is not connected to the authority sewer system. A copy of the staff's November 2nd, 2020 report is also attached regarding Mr. Moody's account. Mr. Moody?
Good evening, everyone. Get your consideration again. Like I met all the requirements I think I had to do. They ain't anymore like I would do it, but when I paid my fee, like I said, I thought it was just for water, but I called them later for sewer too. I got booked with sewer. I don't know how or why. My wife held my business at the time. But if you can see it in your heart, give me on the non-user fee, I would sure appreciate it.
This is gonna go to the county attorney. I need a clarification. It said the water connection fee would be $250. It's paid by January 31st, 1995. I remember that because at the time they came from me. But the question I have is said, after that date, it would be $500. So I would assume that this fee should be $500 because it's after January 31st, 1995. So this date, any date after that date would be this date, any other date, but this date is coming after that date. I need some clarification with it.
There was a period that became when a discount was given to encourage people to act voluntarily. And that discount period elapsed and the full fee is imposed. So it's understanding your statement, I agree with
Okay, but that's what you're saying, right? They say hereafter. So it was $250 at that time. So hereafter, he should be paying $500.
I believe you're correct.
Okay, so he should, if he wants to come up to the water, he should only have to pay $500. So this is hereafter, but this is hereafter.
Could you repeat what was saying? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
I said, it says, the water connection fee would be $250. It's paid before January 31st, 1995.
I agree with that.
And then it said, after that date, it would be $500.
Agreed again.
So if he wanted to hook up to the water, he should only have to pay $500.
I thought the gentleman was already hooked up.
No, he's not hooking to the water.
Okay, I did not understand.
Right, so, but this is your hours, so if he wants to hook up to the water right then, his fee should only be $500.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Water is not available. Water is not available.
The answer to Mr. Kane's question is yes, but it's not available.
So we're saying he can't hook up to the water?
Yes, sir, water is not available at Mr. Moody's residence right now. It would require a minor water extension for him to be able to get water service.
But wouldn't that have been the same thing, whatever you had to do now, when you had to do it back in January prior to this?
Connection fees, sir, are based upon the cost of the water and sewer authority to complete the connection. So that we recoup the fees. The fees in 1995 would be much lower than in 2020.
But you said, and I asked your attorney, it said after that date would be $500, and this is after that date. And what you would have done, whatever you would have done prior to January 1st, 1995, the exact same amount of what you gotta do right now. So that's no difference. So he should only pay $500, because they're saying after that date, it will be $500. You can't charge him more than that, but this is the language that we're doing that. It says after that date, and this is after that date, so the only thing he should pay is $500.
May I say something?
Right, because if you hook them up, if you hook them up at that time, the same exact work at that time, the same work that you can do right now.
That's happened about 2 years ago. I tried to hook up to the water. He told me it cost me about $4,500 from pipe from that side to my side.
Yes, sir, that's because of the difference.
But the only thing according to what you gave him, and it said January 1st, 1995, the only thing he's gonna pay is the $500. So that's what this thing. After that date, it'll be $500. And you only go by what you put right here. So that's what he has. He said after that date is $500. So he has the right to look up to pay the $500. So that's what this state right here.
It's true, but it's only true if the service is available, and it's not available in his house. Right, Mr. Gibson?
It would require a minor extension.
Okay, but when wasn't available at the date, he paid $250, wasn't available at that time?
No, sir, it was not. It would have required a minor extension.
So, okay, if he had paid the $250 at that time, then what would have happened?
The water and sewer authority would have done a minor extension.
Okay, you know how much it would have cost before 1995,
But it's
$250?
But it's still the same thing there. It's a $500, it's no different. The only difference now is that we're paying $250, pay $500. That's no difference. That's the exact same thing, because what you stated right here, you said after that date, it will be $500. Oh, this is different thing.
Let me step in right here. Being that water really isn't a question right now, and the only thing he's asking is about his sewer service. He's never been hooked up to the sewer service, he's never had our service. So this is my own request right now, that I move that we, grant Mr. his exemption request.
I second that.
Roll call.
Just sewer.
No, look, this is what this guy.
His request is asking.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It says, after that date will be $500. So whatever they got to do now, at the $250, the same thing they got to do right now. So you can't go back and change the language. You can't.
Well, we have in front of us is just, what I'm reading is just.
Go over here. This is a part of what was sent to Mr. Heath right here. This is a part of what was sent to him. And this needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed. So what we're doing right now, we're looking at the sewer, and also, and this part, when I got my package, it came in my package, the water connection fee would be $250. And we was talking about, you're saying about the sewer, but right here, they put in here, the water connection would be $250, you're paid before January 31st, and after that date, $500. And this is after that date. So only thing he pays is $500, but this is definitely after that date. It was $250 prior to, and $500 right now. And I don't think we would be fair to Mr. Moody and fair to anybody else for us to go back with our work. But this, in 1995, I wouldn't use it.
So what are you requesting right now?
Huh?
What I see here,
Right there for the sewer.
Right.
What?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is,
Down to 2 feet.
but he had came from also, the sewer part came up, but he had asked for water. So this is addressed right here. If you read it, if you want to go to it, this is what we read. So they put this, I put this in here. When I got this package, this part was put in here. The water connection fee would be $250. It paid before January 31st, 1985, and after that date, $500. Within 1995, that's the way before I came here. But I can't see how we can treat this man unfair based on the language that was put here in 1995. So if he decided to hook up to the water right now, he pays no more than $500. So this is what this is. And whoever put this together, I wasn't here when he put it together. But we can't treat this man unfair. That's what it says, $500. And if he goes up to the water, he pays the $500.
What do you think?
And that's why I asked the attorney, but I said right when I stated, he said yes.
Yeah, now he's gonna amplify that. The, Mr. Moody has a specific request, Ms. Astrop made a specific motion that granted his request. So there is a motion on the floor to grant Mr. Moody the relief he requested. That is a motion, and that is what the board should vote on. The motion Ms. Astrop made.
Before I proceed, then, that's why I asked you the question. Am I correct in my statement?
there are two different issues, but Ms. Astrop has made a motion to grant this gentleman the relief he requested. And
Roll call.
that motion should be voted on.
Mr. Kane?
Aye.
Mr. Conrad?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Astrop?
And how do I proceed now then? If this has been the language that was sent to me about the water. And that was one of his questions. So now, I don't think, this what it says, do you have a copy of this? You want me to bring it to you so you can see it?
I'll be glad to say yes, sir.
Mr. Moore, are you requesting more at this time?
No, I wasn't questioning, but I had planned on hooking up, like I said, about 2 years ago, but told me, called me $4,500 it was.
I'll let you know on the water.
That's when I didn't do it.
Do you want water?
Yeah, I want, cause I got that hard water line. Like I said, when I paid the $250, that's what I thought I was paying for water. But like I said, I found out I was paying for sewer, I don't know. I didn't take care of the bill, my wife did. And she can't answer that, because she's been sick for the last 10 years, so.
Mr. Gibson, is water available at Mr. Newton's house?
Not with those minor extensions.
Okay. He wants water, would that minor extension be made by the authority?
It could be done by the Water and Sewer Authority. I believe this way this was priced by Mr. Clements was with the contract. But I'm not 100% sure. I would need to research.
Are you saying under the authority's policies, if he wants the service, he pays the cost of making that service available to his property?
Yes, sir, our connection.
Okay, so it is a $500 fee if it's available. If you make it
Oh, I know.
available, he's got to pay the contractor's cost to get the service.
The connection fee has changed a lot since 1995.
Okay. that-
$960 is the connection fee now. But with a line extension, typically the contractor's cost for the line extension or the Water and Sewer Authority's cost, if we can do it with our maintenance department, is what Mr. Moody's connection.
Again,
fee
I'm
would be.
trying to keep this simple. As Mr. Kane has correctly pointed out, it's 500. You have said that the fee is going up for 9560, correct?
$960.
Good news. Okay, but that still depends on the water being available.
That's right.
And you're saying that the authority could determine the cost of that, like Mr. Moody now, if you wanted to pay the availability fee and the connection fee, you could connect. And this was never intended to be forever. These rates change over time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, you don't get grandfathered in. There are timelines on all these programs. The 250 had a date after which it was not available. The 500 was available until the authority changed its rates. And that apparently happened.
Yes, that's correct.
It isn't after that date. It didn't say about anybody changing anything. It's after that date it will be $500.
Okay.
It didn't say anything about authority, nobody changed anything.
Okay, so the issue is Mr. Kane thinks that it said 500 after the state
Right.
was perpetual and could never be changed. And the practice is going to be authority to change the rates to reflect the cost of the authority.
Let me explain this to you.
Sure.
I came on at the same time.
Yes, sir.
And what I did at this particular point in time is this. It came through with the fee. 3 years later, I never hooked up to the water.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when it came back in, they're here out the date, meant that whatever that, I said, I didn't hook up in 95, so when I hooked up in 98, I only have to pay to hear out the date. Okay, yeah, but there was nothing telling me at that time that when I came back in to hook up to the water system, that I had to do anything different. So right now, any date after January 31st, 1995, any date, whatever that date is, it could be 2035. He still paid $500, but this, it didn't say anything about any authority, it didn't say anything about anything else.
All right, I think this is the issue. Mr. Kane is pointing to that and saying, because it's an African state 500, Mr. Kane believes that it's a fee that is fixed in perpetuity and can never be changed. I think the authority's practice over the years has been to change rates to reflect increasing costs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So the cost has increased from 500 to 960.
Yes, sir.
And that has been the policy of GCWSA forever.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The only argument I got right there, that's what it said, that it should be stated right here, that's not what it said right here, it said there.
Thank you.
Okay, There could be a motion on the floor for that. It says, after that date, it would be $500, right? Like I said, they put it back in. And I know when I did it at the same time, I just take what it was, and figure out. Okay. Can I get a motion to that from somebody? I'd like to make a motion on it then, that Mr. Moon paid $500. I need a motion, roll call, we need a roll call, on this second.
Okay, are we doing a roll call on the first vote and second? First, right?
No, we already did the first one.
We did a motion and a second, we didn't need a roll call.
Huh?
We did the
I
motion.
thought when he was here, so I thought we already did that.
Okay.
We did that, okay. That's what we changed.
Okay, so, the motion is $500. Right. Mr. Kane?
Aye.
Mr. Conwell?
No.
Mr. Brown? No. Ms. Aisha?
No.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Roll call.
Mr. Kane?
Aye.
Mr. Conwell? Mr. Brown? Ms. Aisha?
Aye.
Well,